at Franklin Field in Philadelphia.
Haywood Hale Broun in Los Angeles.
Haywood Hale Broun at Yankee Stadium in New York.
Welcome to Woodie's World. I knew him as Woody. I'm Bud Lamoureux. We were a television team exploring the America of the 1960s and 70s, looking for the big stories and the not-so-little ones. And every Saturday night on the CBS Network News, there was Woody Broun with his merry mustache, his loud jackets, and his suitcase full of words. Oh, what words.
Long ago, Canute, king, coach, and general manager of the Britons, commanded the waves to stop, but they broke through his line. Vinnie Lombardi hasn't tried stopping the tides, but it's safe to say that if he ordered his Packers to do it, they'd drown in the attempt.
Lombardi, from his salad bowl days in the Super Bowl with the Packers to his final days in Washington with the Redskins. Vincent Thomas Lombardi was born in Brooklyn in 1913. It was not an operatic upbringing, but the drama of Italian opera seemed to embody his every move on the football field. Implore, reward, plead, demand.
He embodied 13th century Italy.
What the hell's going on out here?
In the sense that you or I have several gears.
You bring them back to the line.
You say something that irritates me, I'm a little irritated. We get back, and maybe 4 gears before I say, all right, you want to step outside. Vinnie could go from here up to blind rage in 10 seconds and then back down. There was nothing in between.
With a Roman determination to win, Lombardi drove his Packers to rather easy victories in the first 2 Super Bowls. Roman numeral 2 in Miami was especially gratifying in that he beat a fellow Brooklynite, Al Davis of the Oakland Raiders. Woody walked the beaches in search of the pregame storyline.
Long ago, Canute, king, coach, and general manager of the Britons, commanded the waves to stop, but they broke through his line. Vinnie Lombardi hasn't tried stopping the tides, but it's safe to say that if he ordered his Packers to do it, they'd drown in the attempt. As the Packers, between autographs, pondered the pounding waves and the unseasonably swinging palms, they saw no vision of distant islands beyond the surf. Their rest, an uncharacteristic activity for them, was disturbed by visions of Vince pounding the ground beneath his feet as he, less philosophic than Canute, who laughed off the tide fiasco, laughs off nothing and demands of his men everything. 2 weeks ago, in sub-zero weather, they gave him everything, seconds before the frigid waves would have closed over them. And Bart Starr's touchdown against Dallas gave them an unprecedented 3rd straight NFL crown and made Lombardi into a chuckling Uncle Vince with enough good cheer for a children's show. Neither weather nor reporters' questions could straighten the sickle of his smile. What is the special quality that a champion ought to have?
Well, that's a very difficult question I try to answer, Woody, in such a short time. Quality of a champion is a quality of one who wins, really. I don't know how else to put it, Woody, really.
Well, that's a fair enough answer, and getting to that, it is a hard question to answer, but it's a question that your team has answered magnificently in the past. Just in a few words, or take as many words as you want, how do you go about getting the feeling that you're not going to lose?
Well, Woody, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think our approach is one of winning now. I really wouldn't know how to put that in words right now, Woody. Just what our approach would be.
The Packers worked out briskly, however, aware that the smile will disappear with the first missed block, and that they are up against the best AFL team in the league's brief history. While the Packers squeaked past Dallas 21-17 in their playoff, the Raiders stormed over Houston 40-7 with a spectacular attack and a savage defense. This formidable machine was constructed by Al Davis, once their coach and general manager, now a managing partner, and a man who, like Lombardi, learned how to fight on the battlefield of Brooklyn's streets. Unsoftened by tropic breezes, he is as determined as his rival.
We're cognizant of the fact that we're basically behind. Some people think that the National Football League is tremendously overrated because of clubs like Atlanta, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, the Giants, clubs who have not done well in recent years, very poorly in fact, but we admit that overall the National Football League is ahead in years, and we admit that a professional football team like the Packers is a symbol of the best in professional football, but our dedication goes onward, our desire to become number one goes onward, and we know that this is the first plateau. We intend to have a super effort. Whether we get a super performance will be relative to the way the Packers play, but we feel that our organization is destined for this, and it may be this year, it may be next year, but within a period of years we will be number one.
The only acquaintance between the Packers and the Raiders so far is the shadowy knowledge born of game films. Left off the dancing screen are the measurements of desire, drive, and devotion, all of which makes picking football games look harder than picking oranges. This is Haywood Hale-Broun awaiting the Super Bowl at the Orange Bowl in southern Florida.
Al Davis wasn't far from wrong. In the following year, the AFL Jets came up with that huge upset of Baltimore. Coming up, the easy victory for the Packers in Miami, and more about the Roman General at Woodie's World, Lombardi. Where Super Bowl I was memorable only for its Tinseltown halftime in Los Angeles, Game 2 in Miami came down to the iron wills of Vince Lombardi and Al Davis. What separated the two teams was talent. The Packers gave Bart Starr all the time in the world to throw, and in the end, the Roman General was carried off on Packer shoulders after a 33-14 victory. That joyous moment could not mask for Woody memories of another Packer dressing room when Bart Starr had a rib injury.
Now, on the field, he must be Spartan, but in the dressing room, when the trainer gently pressed the rubber donut, Starr screamed in pain. Now he's bandaged up, and a couple of days later, he must raise his right arm, look for the receiver, know that a man weighing 250 pounds with an armored shoulder is coming right at that donut. But you can't throw the ball too soon or Vinny will be angry. That's what Vinny was. He believed that you can do it if you want to. It's said that a mother can lift an automobile off a child so much, and he thought that a tackle should be able just to burst through. If you want to do it enough, you can do it. That's not true, unfortunately, but Vinny believed it, and his players were so afraid of him that they often did it. Vinny was also, and this is the thing that he doesn't get credit, he was a man of honor. He didn't believe in dirty play. He didn't say, if you get called for holding, they won't call you the next time. Also, he was among the first to, you roomed alphabetically, and if some white player with the initial D said, well, I don't want to room it. First, you're a Packer, then you're white or you're black. But you room with the next person in the alphabet. And if you're prejudiced, let me know and I'll get you traded. So in that way, he was not kind of the horror figure that he sometimes called out to be. He had a very strong sense of right and doing the right thing. It's just, you were supposed to be able to lift automobiles off people.
After Super Bowl II, Lombardi suddenly retired from the coaching lines and became the Packer general manager. But he missed the action and just as suddenly unretired to become coach of the hangdog Washington Redskins. Next on Woodie's World, Lombardi. The Washington Redskins hadn't had a winning football team since the decade of the Korean War, when Vince Lombardi arrived in town to take command. He had grown restless in the executive suite and immediately put his old tactics to work at the Redskin training camp in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Woody was there to watch, but especially to listen.
The smiling quarterback and the confident coach are staples of the vague and cheerful early days of a football training season. Coach Vince Lombardi, however, is never vague and is inclined to ration his cheer with puritanical severity.
To have fun is wonderful. I think there's a place for laughter, but certainly not on the field. This is not a laughing business, and out here there's very little fun on the field. And I might add this, there's no laughter in losing either.
If losing were a subject of mirth, the Washington team and its fans would have spent recent years doubled over with streaming eyes and aching ribs. Now there is the grave apprehension of the moment when the headmaster stills the study hall by clearing his throat, and rookies and veterans draw equipment with the dedication of crusaders collecting their armor. What a man his tailor hath made him, runs an old saying. And an equipment man can build a fearsome-looking football player on any reasonable human frame. Making a real player out of the man inside is a longer and much more painful job.
You're waiting for him to come back. To hell with him. You bring him back to the line. Let him come back for the ball. Perfection is very elusive, I think, to be absolutely perfect. I think in striving for perfection, however, I think you do accomplish things that you might not accomplish if you did not have that urge.
The man who must conduct Lombardi's Lightning into the team is quarterback Sonny Jurgensen, a man whose courage and talent have always been as obvious as the businessman's bulge which loomed over the top of his football pants. Now leaner and wearier, he runs through sprints like a commuter who started on the far side of the parking lot and fights for the fierce fun of fitness at the advanced football age of 35.
Well, of course it does get harder, but the fact that Coach Lombardi is with the Redskins now, it's very exciting, and he has the capacity to scare you a little bit, but he isn't that way. He has a lot of charm, and I think the charisma that he's bringing with him, that he knows what he wants done. He has a method of going about it, and we're going to do it. We'll be the best football team they've had in Washington in a long time.
The best Washington team in a long time is a modest claim, akin to saying the best hockey team in Monaco. But Lombardi, who dreams of unstoppable plays and unstoppable players, drives his men with tireless insistence.
Bring him back, Harry. And throw the ball here. That's why I want the ball thrown. I don't want the ball thrown way the hell up in here. I want the ball thrown in here. Bring him back. You bring him back. It's up to you to bring him back. Life is pretty simple. I think if you stay basic and you stay simple, I think you'll have a much more enjoyable life, and I think football is the same thing. I think you must teach the basic things, and you must be perfect in those basic principles.
Endeavoring to prove their unstoppability, Lombardi's men heave at the nearly unheavable and run in harness like so many dray horses going up Pike's Peak, goaded by a man smaller, older, and more energetic than any of them.
Up those arms! Up those arms! No! Can't run like this! Up the arms! Up!
Aging players eroded by the football wars are displaying their scars for one more year. Once retired veteran Sam Huff, roused by the coach's bugle, is nearly routed by his exercises, but he feels triumph as an icing to his exhaustion.
He motivates me. He wants me to, he makes me want to get out there and play to the best of my ability, even far above my ability. And this is the type of man that he is, and anybody that puts on a Redskin uniform this year will have the same type of feeling, and this is his main point. This is what makes teams go that play for him, the fact that he's able to get them in the right frame of mind.
Lombardi, as romantic under the breastplate of his public personality as is Huff, could have spent this year dropping cigar ash on the big desk he had as general manager at Green Bay. But to this complex man, the savor of the comradeship of combat is irreplaceable.
That's good, Johnny. That's very good, Johnny. Very good move, Johnny. I think the one thing that you miss more than anything else is the closeness you have with the players. I think as a management end, I lost that part of it. I lost the players' enthusiasm. I lost their confidence. I seem to lose all of that.
The arms and legs of Lombardi's dream belong to these college boys who last year worried about exams and must in the future get straight A's out of the Redskin playbooks. Even walking across the campus in the moments allowed for relaxation, the players walk as warily and thoughtfully as leopards considering a kill, aware that relaxation is not something Lombardi wants them to get good at. You've just barely met the coach. Does Coach Lombardi frighten you?
I'm maybe not frightened. I'm in awe of him, I'll say that. I've read Jerry Kramer's book. I'm just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen.
How do you feel?
Or about the same. I feel that if you're going to play, you might as well play for the best. And from all I've heard since I was knee-high, you know, that he's the best, and so it's quite an opportunity to play for this man.
A lot of people say I win on fear. Well, I'm not too sure of that. I don't win on fear. I think we win on discipline. I think that's part of this game. That's what makes it the great game that it is. I think in order to be a great football team, you have to be a disciplined team. I think you have to be disciplined on the field as well as off the field.
Most of the lessons learned here on the Dickinson College campus are the peaceful prosiness of library and lectern. The football players at Vince Lombardi's Savage Seminars add another note: commando training in a cloister. This is Haywood Hale Brune in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Sonny Jurgensen proved prophetic. The Redskins had their first winning season in 14 years. Unfortunately, our relationship with Lombardi soured on that trip. He forbade all camera crews from recording his voice as he drove his new troops. But we knew that a silent Lombardi would be like a speechless Pavarotti. So we surreptitiously recorded him, as you just heard, and he was furious, threatening to pull the plug on the CBS telecast of the Redskins' first preseason game. All that became academic a year later when Vince Lombardi was diagnosed with intestinal cancer and died after a short illness. When we return, Lombardi's old school brings back football after a long hiatus in the concluding chapter of Woodie's world, Lombardi. Their names were Bart Barsky, Wojciechowicz, Franco, Lombardi. They were pieces of the 7 blocks of granite, the storybook line that guided Fordham University to the college football heights in the 1930s. In 1937, they were ranked 3rd in the nation and drew packed crowds to the Polo Grounds and Yankee Stadium. Vince Lombardi was a 170-pound mainstay of that line. Eventually, football died out at Fordham, only to be renewed in the 1960s at a much lower level. Woodie took the subway to Vince Lombardi's alma mater.
These athletes were never high-pressured by a recruiter in a convertible and received no scholarships based on their muscles. They'll get into pro football by buying a ticket. They are that modern rarity, actual students playing on a college field. Club football is what the 19th century thought all intercollegiate sports should be. A game not only played by students, but also supervised by students and in many cases coached by students. Crowds are small, trips are short, and scholarships are forbidden. As compensation, there is the feeling that this is an integral college activity, rather than a gladiatorial show provided by strangers. Chief of Staff for the club is Senior Jim Buds.
The students here who play football are a lot closer to the student body than they would be if they were some of those select few in the other colleges who are on scholarship and sort of away from the student body.
Fordham's coach, Jim Lansing, is 28 years beyond his student days. A 1941 All-American end for the Rams, he must on occasion see in his mind's eye the days when the name Fordham roused the fear in the nation's football teams that the name Nelson used to evoke in the French Navy. Within the memory of many wistful old grads are those afternoons when Fordham played NYU for the championship of the world bounded by the boroughs. Afternoons when the backfield shifting of such as Len Eschmont and Dom Principe had the snap of a good chorus line and the deception of the Scarlet Pimpernel. Certainly the films Lansing shows his players today are of a smaller world, and one where the 7 blocks in the line are sometimes less than granite. But it is a world whose freshness he finds comfortable.
Is there continual pressure from the alumni for Fordham to go back to playing varsity football?
Well, we have certain people that think that have the idea club football is sandlot football. It's very hard. We like to get rid of the name club if we possibly could. And there are people that would like us to go back to varsity scholarship football.
It has been hinted that at some schools the inducements for football players go beyond the inducements offered their instructors. But at Fordham, the lagniappe for lineman Bob Galamaga is a chance to set up the hot dog stand and share in its returns.
Still, it makes for a livelier morning than one of those coachly lectures on what the alumni expect.
Club football, you play ball because you like to, not because you're getting paid. Quite a few of my friends have played varsity ball, fairly big schools, but they're a little machine. They're getting paid to play ball.
In the short and simple annals of club football, Fordham bulks large, having begun this informal intercollegiate game in October 1964 against the men of Maine Maritime. Fordham brought a string of 16 straight club victories to this game, and a number of players who recall old phrases like watch charm guard and scat back. Were such men to turn out in the land of giants, which is big-time football, they would be handed a student manager's water bucket and towel. A winning streak anywhere produces tensions, however, and the game is played with the fierceness, the flair, and the slight air of disorganization characteristic of clan warfare in the Scottish Highlands. At halftime, a group improbably called the Ramelettes moves cautiously through some choreography which seems to have been saved from a Saturday long ago. And the band proves that human musicians are sometimes as much fun as the eerily precise ones who spell things out. From Joe Namath or a club quarterback, a touchdown pass is the moment of tension followed by the moment of release, which explains why football is a century old this season. Football failure is as pushy to the blood pressure as success, and in the limited practice club game, the failures sometimes have the grandeur of Greek tragedy, although none of these tragedies cost anybody his scholarship. At game's end, the score stands at 7-7, and the teams and coaches wander away with the bemused air that standoffs bring. Traditionally, this bell tolls for football victory at Fordham. It has tolled for bowl games, as well as for club victories over such as Fairfield and Iona. Now, climbing the ladder of success, some alumni want to return to the big time, to the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl. But the football foundry approach might muffle the fun as well as the bell. This is Haywood Hale Brune at Fordham.
Vince Lombardi had hoped to be the Fordham coach when they dropped football in the 1950s. The school has since upped the stakes and now plays in the Patriot League. That would undoubtedly bring a smile to the old general's face.
The hell with him. You bring him back to the line. Let him come back for the ball.
It's said that a mother can lift an automobile off a child, and he thought that a tackle should be able just to burst through. If you want to do it enough, you can do it. And his players were so afraid of him that they often did it.
This is not a laughing business, and I might add this, there's no laughter in losing either.